I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the bruise peeking out from under Aiden's pajama sleeve. He's 8. My whole world. "Did you fall at the playground again?" I asked gently, kneeling down to button his coat as we got ready to leave my sister's house. Aiden didn't meet my eyes. He just whispered I was being too loud. That was the start of it. My sister, Janessa, had insisted I leave Aiden with her for a few days while I traveled for work. I'd recently accepted a big client overseas, and though I was hesitant, she'd said all the right things. "Let him bond with his cousins. You always look so tired. Let me help. You're a single mom, Ray. You deserve to breathe. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." So I agreed. 1 week. And when I came back, I found my son quieter, flinching at sounds, and that bruise. It took 3 days before Aiden finally opened up. We were home again, and he'd wet the bed. He cried, actually sobbed, as he begged me not to punish him. "I'll sleep in the garage again, I promise. Please don't tell Aunt Janessa." I froze. "What did you say?" His eyes were full of terror. "She said I'm like a broken blender, loud, pointless, and always in the way. When I spilled juice on the carpet, she said I needed to cool off in the garage, and when I screamed, she hit me with her shoe." My mouth went dry. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I called Janessa that night. "Are you serious right now?" She laughed. "Ray, you spoil that boy rotten. He needs structure." "What? I make him sleep in a room without a TV and suddenly I'm a monster? Give me a break." "You hit him!" "Oh, please. I tapped him. Barely. I don't know what kind of princess you're raising, but you might want to teach him to man up." That's when something in me cracked. I had spent years rebuilding my life after my ex-husband disappeared with half my savings. I'd started a small e-commerce business, selling curated artisan goods from local women-owned shops, and grew it with blood, sweat, and zero support from my family. And Janessa? She'd been Daddy's favorite, always. She never lifted a finger in her life. She married rich, divorced richer, and still managed to mooch off our parents while living in a mini mansion she didn't even pay for. But she was careful, always graceful at family parties, sweet in public, toxic in private. I started digging. And the more I found, the colder I got. Turns out, Janessa's lavish lifestyle wasn't so self-made. She'd been siphoning monthly deposits from our late grandparents' trust fund, meant for both of us. Somehow, only her name had ended up on the disbursement forms. Curious, right? I checked deeper. With the help of an old college friend who now worked in financial forensics, I traced irregular payments linked to Janessa's accounts. Lavish spa trips, jewelry, even a private tutor for her parrot. Yes, her parrot. But it got worse. The accounts were co-managed by our parents. They'd helped her move the money, and I was listed as financially unstable due to a fake credit score report Janessa had submitted years ago when I applied for a home loan. They didn't just mock me behind my back. They actively sabotaged my future. My hands shook as I stared at the records. They thought I was still the soft one, the forgotten middle child, the quiet failure who would never bite back. But they forgot one thing. I'd built something of my own. And I had just filed the paperwork to become their worst nightmare. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even call them back. I just stopped calling at all. While Janessa was throwing another wine-tasting party in her backyard oasis, I was sitting in a downtown office building across from a white-haired attorney named Mr. Klein, our family's original estate lawyer, the same one our grandfather had used, and he remembered me. "Miss Raylan," he said, sliding a yellowing folder across the table. "Your grandfather was a sharp man. He specifically noted that the trust was to be split evenly. If there were alterations afterward, someone tampered." I opened the folder. Typed instructions, hand-signed notes in the margins, and a clause. If either beneficiary is removed or altered without legal due process, the trust shall trigger an audit and legal dispute. "Can this be enforced?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "It already has been. You're not the first to ask." Turns out I had allies I didn't even know about. Our grandfather had left a secondary clause naming me as a contingent beneficiary in the event of fraud, but no one had notified me because Janessa and my parents had moved everything into private custodianship, quietly, illegally. They thought I wouldn't know where to look. But now I had everything I needed. I quietly began shifting my assets. Every spare dollar went into securing a forensic audit. Every connection I'd built through my business, lawyers, financial advisors, even an old high school friend who worked in banking compliance was brought in discreetly. I also hired a child therapist. Aiden's nightmares hadn't stopped, and I made sure every session was documented. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was building a case. 3 months passed. Janessa sent fake texts. "Missing you. Hope you're okay. We should catch up." My parents called once when their anniversary came up. "You should at least send a card," my mother sighed. "Your sister's been under so much stress." Stress. From hitting my son, from stealing a trust, from calling me a barely functioning single mother to her book club. I sent no card. Instead, I sent a letter, through a lawyer. It arrived the morning of Janessa's annual garden gala. It froze her bank accounts, froze my parents' joint accounts, froze the trust. The headline on the letter? Legal notice misappropriation of trust funds. Allegations of child abuse formal investigation launched. It was poetic. They'd dressed in pastels, invited the local HOA president, and were sipping Chardonnay when the courier arrived. I didn't witness it, but I saw the aftermath. The text messages started pouring in. "Janessa, you manipulative little witch, you have no idea what you've started." "Mom, you're embarrassing the entire family." "Tuh, Dad, you were always the ungrateful one. You've ruined your sister's life for nothing." But I didn't respond. I was too busy giving Aiden back his smile. I took him to the zoo. He laughed for the first time in weeks. And that night, when he said, "Mom, I don't think I'm broken anymore," I knew I was never going back. Weeks later, court orders were issued. Aiden's testimony was used in a closed hearing. The judge wasn't kind to Janessa. The therapist's report painted a damning picture. My parents were named as financial accomplices. Janessa cried in court, claimed she was trying to protect the family legacy. The judge raised an eyebrow. "You made a child sleep in a garage. This isn't legacy, it's abuse." By the end of that week, Janessa's assets were frozen for 18 months. My parents were barred from acting as trustees for any family account again. And I was granted full control of the trust's legal restoration. It still wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the isolation Aiden felt in that cold garage. So I made one last move. I created a new company. A branch of my artisan business. This time, centered around women rebuilding their lives after abuse, financial or otherwise. It would offer free therapy for single mothers and trauma-affected children. I named it Room of Light. And I posted about it on LinkedIn, publicly, with my story. Sometimes they'll call you cursed because they can't explain your strength. It went viral. Janessa's name was never mentioned, but anyone in our town who read it knew exactly who it was about. I didn't hear from Janessa for weeks after the post went viral. But others did. A teacher from Aiden's old school reached out through email. She apologized, said she'd always wondered why he flinched so much in class after those weekends with the family. 2 women messaged me privately. One had been Janessa's roommate in college. Said she once saw Janessa push a drunk girl down a flight of stairs at a party and laugh about it. The other? A former babysitter, fired for being too soft on Aiden. She'd reported Janessa to CPS. Nothing happened. But now? People were talking. That's when Janessa finally called me. The number flashed across my phone just after midnight. I stared at it for a long time. Then I picked up. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic buried under her breath. "You need to take that post down." I didn't say anything. "You've ruined my life," she snapped. "Do you think your little pity project makes you better than the rest of us?" I waited a beat, then calmly replied, "No, Janessa, but it makes me better than you." She launched into a rant, said I was always jealous, that I never had real ambition, that I used Aiden's trauma to play the victim. She even had the nerve to say, "He's a boy. Boys get rough sometimes. It's not my fault your kid is weak." That's when something inside me broke. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and whispered, "He's stronger than you'll ever be, because even after what you did, he still wanted to believe you loved him." There was silence. Then she hung up. 2 days later, she tried to sue me for defamation. The court threw it out, because everything I'd said was true and documented. At the next hearing, I submitted the therapist's report again, and this time I submitted new evidence, photos Aiden had drawn. One was of a dark garage, another of his aunt screaming, and a third one that made even the court clerk pause. It was a picture of a boy curled on concrete, while 3 smiling adults sat inside eating cake. When Janessa saw it, she turned white. My parents didn't even show up that day. They'd tried to stay out of the fire, pretending like they hadn't enabled it all. But the records showed their signatures on the trust forms, their joint emails approving Janessa's temporary withdrawals, their texts telling me to forgive and move on because family means putting up with a little pain. They were guilty, not just legally, morally. By the end of the trial, the court ruled that Janessa was permanently removed as beneficiary. My parents were stripped of access to all family-managed accounts. I was awarded restitution damages and full guardianship over Aiden's financial future. But the most poetic justice came 2 weeks later. Janessa's fiancé dumped her. Apparently, he'd read the story online, saw how she treated a child. He left a note at her condo that simply read, "If this is how you treat your nephew, I don't want to know what marriage would be like." Her friends stopped replying. The HOA board removed her from leadership. The yoga studio she co-owned posted a statement online distancing themselves from her entirely. "We do not condone child abuse or financial fraud." Her whole curated world, gone. As for my parents, they moved out of state. I heard through a third cousin that they were starting over somewhere cheaper, quieter, where no one knew what they did. But I didn't care. I had Aiden. And for the first time, he started to feel safe. He laughed more. He played again. He drew sunshine instead of shadows. And one night, when I tucked him in, he held my hand and said, "Mom, you didn't let the monsters win." "No, baby," I whispered. "I didn't." But I wasn't done yet. Because what they took from him, and from me, wasn't just money or peace. It was dignity. So I used the restitution money and the new traction from my business and launched a second initiative under Room of Light. This one would help kids who had been emotionally or physically abused by family members, especially those from wealthy, untouchable households. We offered legal aid, therapists, school placement assistance. And the first scholarship? Named in Aiden's honor. The boy who slept in the garage and still dreamed. It trended. Parents emailed, schools messaged, other survivors wrote letters. And one message stood out. It was from a girl in another state, said she watched my video on silent abuse. She said her aunt had done the same thing to her, and now she was finally getting help. That was the real karma. Because when people like Janessa or my parents try to bury you, they forget they're planting seeds. And I bloomed. Not in spite of them, but to spite them. And I did it in the light. Right where they never expected me to thrive. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.